Pluto was demoted from its former status as a planet in 2006 by the International Astronomical Union, which is the organization of scientists, the community, responsible for categorizing which orbiting bodies are planets and which are asteroids. Now, planetary scientists have long disputed this reclassification, preferring to classify a planet as a spherical body because of the geophysical um, process by which spherical bodies form, distinguishing planets from asteroids because of the process of formation that would lead to the spherical shape. Pluto, of course, not only is spherical, but since 2015, with the New Horizons spacecraft passing Pluto and its moon, what we discovered is that along with being spherical, Pluto is also geologically active. And there seems to be some connection between the spherical shape and the presence of geological activity. And so, as far as the planetary scientists are concerned, Pluto is undoubtedly a planet. But the larger question here, for me as a philosopher, is um, well, how are we as human beings to make sense of this clash of paradigms? And I don't only mean the paradigm of astronomy and the paradigm of planetary science. I also mean other paradigms, cultural paradigms, even astrological paradigms. Astronomy and astrology were not always separate fields of inquiry. Pluto is certainly a potent source of archetypal energy as far as the world's astrologers are concerned. And to have it demoted from planetary status by astronomers is in some sense reflective of the archetypal quality of this planet, which is to say that Pluto tends to correlate with Hades, the archetype of the underworld, the lord of the underworld, or the chthonic uh, powers of death and rebirth. And so it's no surprise then that the astronomers, these modern scientific inquirers into the order of nature, would tend to repress the chaotic chthonic power of Pluto, trying to demote it um, to a mere asteroid. Now, again, from the perspective of planetary scientists, the astronomers' attempt to reclassify it was misguided, and I suspect that the planetary scientists will win out here. But there's also the question of the cultural status of Pluto and the uh, relationship between science and culture, between science and what we might call common sense, the zeitgeist, the collective imagination of the human species. Certainly, most of us grew up um, imagining Pluto as a planet, and to have this astronomical union, this elite group of scientists, declare that, in fact, you're wrong, it's not a planet, it felt like a bit of an affront, a bit of an assertion of power and a declaration of the independence of science from culture, the purity of scientific knowledge existing in a rarefied space above the confused understanding of the common person. And, you know, as a philosopher, I think of my role as, um, the philosopher of science Bruno Latour articulates it as a kind of diplomatic practice where I would like to find a way for these differing paradigms, the astronomical, that of planetary science, that of astrology even, find a way for these differing paradigms to coexist, to translate between one and the other, rather than having to choose to narrowly lock ourselves into one perspective or another, to recognize the interplay between them and the fact that we will never have final knowledge of the world around us. We are instead engaged in a process of infinite learning. Another way of talking about this process of infinite learning is to talk about it in terms of a participatory epistemology, a way of knowing that incorporates mystery. So rather than seeing knowledge as the purification of chaos to reveal order, knowledge instead becomes a relational practice whereby the human mind synchronistically aligns itself and participates with the wider cosmos in an ongoing creative activity. Immanuel Kant described the transcendental conditions of knowledge, and for him these transcendental conditions were innately given in the a priori structure of the mind. And these astronomers who have decided to reclassify Pluto, we could think of this as a sort of institutionalized set of transcendental conditions, this new way of classifying what counts as a planet versus an asteroid and so on. It's an institutional grounding of what for Kant had been transcendentally grounded. We need to move to a place where we recognize the transcendental conditions of knowledge are not just rooted in the human mind and not just rooted in human institutions, but rooted in a more profound creative process, a genetic process that includes both human beings, the various bodies orbiting the sun within our solar system, and in fact the entire cosmos. We, as human knowers, conscious human beings, are participants in an ongoing cosmogenetic process, a cosmogenetic event. And so what is Pluto, planet, asteroid? I think the more profound question is to ask why it is that we take such classifications seriously in the first place. Clearly, we want to find the most logically coherent form of classification, and in that case, I would say the planetary scientists are closer than the astronomers because of the spherical structure of an orbiting body that has certain implications for how it was formed, how that body was formed, and this evolutionary history of each body should be what we consider when we classify it as planet or asteroid. I tend to agree with this way of looking at it. But the deeper question, again, is about this clash of paradigms. And I think it's essential for the future of our species that we don't, if we're scientists, try to claim that we have some pure, unmediated access to the truth that, mere mortals without scientific training lack. Science is itself a cultural activity, and when we try to make sense of our place in this solar system and in this universe, we need to engage that pursuit with all of our faculties, right? Reason, the senses, also, though, imagination, intuition. I offer that as a philosophical perspective to consider.